screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Kunal, can you please sir ka poster band kar do so that he can share the screen? And Neolika, you can start.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope all of you are doing well during these unprecedented times. My name is Neolika Purti, and I am a member of Center for Advanced Studies in Labor Welfare, CASLAW. I welcome you all to the last day of the one-week workshop on Right to Information, a Revolutionary Law, organized by CASLAW. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Professor Dr. Anand Pawar. Sir is the senior most professor of law at Rajiv Gandhi National University of Law, Punjab, RGNUL, and was also the officiating vice chancellor of RGNUL. He has many educational qualifications such as BSc in mathematics, LLM, LLB, and PhD. He has more than 15 book publications and has presented paper in more than 10 international conferences and more than 40 national conferences. Sir has an experience of chairing and co-chairing in more than 30 conferences and seminars at international and national level and delivering lectures as resource person. Thank you, sir, for being here. It is our utmost honor. Without taking any more time, let us begin with today's session. The topic for today's session is Right to Health and Information, Privacy Concerns. Sir, over to you now.
Thank you, Neolika. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible. Your voice is just a bit feeble, but...
Let me just adjust this. Now is it audible?
Yes, sir, better. Yes, sir.
And the slides are also visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So can you please, because I think you're sharing your desktop on a screen. So if you could...
Yes, sir. This is the full screen. Yeah.
So thank you for providing me the opportunity to discuss my views on right to health and information, the privacy issues. It is always very difficult for the person who is the last speaker in any seminar or conference, because almost everything has been said and discussed in multiple ways. And therefore, I have not kept it very common and general. Then I have kept it a specific one to deal some of my views with reference to right to health and privacy concerns, because there are multiple kind of disputes or differences, or sometimes you can say that informations when it comes to individuals' right to health and privacy, you will find that there are some contradictory views. Sometimes you will say that the right to health is a fundamental right. At the same time, the constitutional perspective by way of interpretations also justifies in multiple ways by saying that right to privacy is also fundamental right. So in case if there are contradictions and conflicts in these two very fundamental aspects of individual's right, then which one should be given preferences? What the law says, and whether we should have a common approach or the judiciary should apply a very specific approach in terms of sharing the information, irrespective even if it breaches the privacy of the individuals. So some way, and then in between, if there is a conflict or contradiction, mainly it might be on the basis of information sought on certain issues. So the general approach would be sometimes it requires harmonization between all these aspects. When it comes to right to health, we all know that there are multiple kind of concerns. And during this COVID pandemic, we have realized that though time and again the judiciary has ensured that the individual should be provided the basic and fundamental human rights as right to health, which is an inclusive right, including the clean water, wholesome environment, right to food, right to shelters. So, and at the same time, whether the government or the health policies of a particular country is of such nature which can ensure these basic and fundamental rights. So, for example, if you compare the right to health scenario of India in comparison to the many other developed countries. Though India is considered to be the medical destination or medical tourism, that concept is coming up very fast. But when it comes to ensuring this right to health to every individual, still, if you compare in comparison to the developed country or Western country, you will find that the ratio of individuals and the medical facilities and medical professionals is far away of reaching the ideal goals at international level. And that's why perhaps the government is trying to give recognition to the medical practitioners of different field of medicine, be it as allopathic doctor or the allopathy of as a field of medicine, or Ayurveda or Siddha or Unani or homeopathy. And we have time and again realized that this problem of quacks, the quackery, is also very prevalent in India. So, in a country where the larger population has become itself a kind of problem in terms of achieving the international goals or standards to ensure the basic and fundamental rights, sometimes it becomes very difficult. Very difficult for even government also to justify that what kind of developments are taking place in regular course of time as per their policies. And we have seen that during the COVID pandemic, though the government they tried their level best, but in second wave of COVID, we realized that the whole medical facility and the infrastructure available in our country has collapsed, where even the basic requirements like oxygens were not sufficiently available. So there are problems. There are problems in terms of ensuring this basic and fundamental right to health. And for that, there are these when the facilities or the government policies fails to ensure the basic fundamental right, then there are certain kinds of information which are sought by the individuals, by the NGOs, by many different organizations for multiple purposes. So there are concerns with regard to maintaining the data pertaining to right to health or the status of individual relating to the right to health in perspective. And for that, there are multiple ways by which either the government sometimes they fail to ensure, because the medical sector is not purely regulated by the government. And we have the private sector also, and government they themselves cannot ensure the basic health facilities by just making the provision of primary health centers in all the areas. So even in remote areas where they have constructed a primary health center, where basic first aid and some medicines and one of the untrained, unprofessional optometrist as an assistant is also been treated as a medical professional. Can we treat these kind of primary health centers as an institute of providing or ensuring the right to health in India? And therefore, if you will see that in last 1 decade, the government has changed drastically their policies or the medical policy or the health policy in Indian context, whereby recently they have introduced repealing the Medical Council of India and constituted the Medical Commission of India, where they have constituted different boards, like the boards for medical profession as an educational part, then the boards for organ transplantations, then giving recognitions to the Institution of Medical Sciences, different kind of, and one of the very important aspect is that they have started giving recognition. They have started giving recognition to they started giving recognition to such they started giving recognition to even those institutions which are considered to be the institutions which are not otherwise recognized. Say, for example, the primary health center workers or those who are not qualified medical practitioners, but somehow gained through certificate courses the basic understanding about health perspective. The government has up to an extent recognized that they should also be considered as medical practitioners, just to increase the number of medical professionals in our country, and to remove that large gap of ratio between medical practitioners and the patients which are available in the Indian context. So, say for example, in developed countries, there are medical practitioners available for 5,000 people, at least one medical practitioner. In India, it comes to sometimes more than 1 lakh, only one medical practitioner available. So, how to reduce that gap of ensuring that availability of medical practitioners for larger populations by reducing the ratio of patients and the medical practitioners? They have started giving recommendations to alternate form of medicines and the medical practitioners, even if they are not qualified doctors, qualified in terms of they have not undergone through the professional course of medical science. But even in certain cases where on the basis of different parameters, if they have gone through a specific period of time in practicing a specific science of medical science or medical field or any field of medicine, then recognized, which was largely opposed by most of the medical association in India. Perhaps if you remember that prior to this COVID pandemic, that was one of the main concerns of the medical practitioner, that the government, by adopting such kind of measures where they are giving recognition to those people based on their practice, not on the basis of medical qualifications, to practice in medical science. They say that it's putting the individual's life on threat if the individuals, those who are not qualified, and be given the recognition as a medical practitioners. So, discussing all these issues, which means we have problems in terms of ensuring the right to health in perspective, and that problem is multifold. Now, in such scenario where we don't have appropriate or adequate resources, be it as human resources or the institutions to ensure the right to health, be it as in super specialty hospitals or multi-specialty hospitals with recent technologies, equipments, advanced technologies. We are not saying, I'm not saying that it's not available in Indian perspective. It's available. All the medical recent technology and facilities are available in India, and that's why they it is considered to be the favorite medical tourism destination. But it is not available easily for every individual in the country. That is my concern. And affordability becomes a very common concern. And that's why the government has come up with this Shreyas Yojana, and there are multiple kind of government policies where they are providing free treatment up to the amount of around 5,000 or 5 lakh or 2.5 lakhs for critical diseases like cancer, organ transplantation, and some of the specific diseases. But that also is not equally available in all the states, because when it comes to right to health, to enact the legislations and to provide the facilities, the state has, as per the component list and state list, that entry ensuring the right to health of individual or public health is in the concurrent list as well as in the state list also, where the state governments are also free to enact their policies in terms of implementation of the central government schemes or implementing their own schemes, ensuring that the basic facility of health should be ensured. So, considering all these aspects, you may realize that the international scenario ensuring right to health or considering it as an inclusive right, where right to health, right to shelter, right to clean air, also environment, right to pure water, these are all inclusive rights are essentially. So ideally, we have recognized the international documents in terms of getting recognitions for right to health, and we have ensured in many of the provisions of the Constitution, where under Article 21 you will find multiple cases where the Supreme Court has ensured that right to health is a fundamental and basic rights under the right to life, and not only the right to life but a dignified life. So it's not only the right to food or the midday meals which have been provided to the students of the primary age, but it should be nutritious also. So how to make it the maintain the nutritious values in the food, how to encourage our individuals as in, to have all, to ensure all these provisions. And it's a kind of obligation for all the states also, because there are multiple kind of provisions in directive principal state policy also, which up to an extent puts a kind of obligation on states to ensure that as and when they are making their policies, they should also ensure that all these basic and fundamental needs of the individuals are taken care. So there are provisions not only in the third part of the constitution, that is fundamental right, but even in fourth part of the constitution, be it as directive principal state policies, which suggest multiple measures by which this right to health and public health is to be ensured. And not only in relation to the right to health, but in constitutional perspective, there are other legislations whereby the criminal obligations can be imposed. Say, for example, in case of breach of the norms which are required to be followed, or in case the treatment which is required to be given, and if there is any failure and it consequences any adverse impact on the health of any individuals, then there are criminal litigations also. And the medical negligence is one of the area where the courts, and not only the consumer courts, but the criminal courts and the constitutional courts or the civil courts are also having so many cases of the medical negligences. Now, when it comes to this conflict of right to health as a fundamental right, and in such scenario, because while the individual needs the information, specifically with regard to medical legal cases, then in such cases, like in accidental cases, to claim for the reimbursement of the insurance claims, or to establish that there was a medical negligence, or sometimes to establish their own or to strengthen their arguments in different litigations at different forums, the individuals need some kind of information in the form of medical information. So there are different ways by which either sometimes the individuals, they need the information relating to their treatment, their medical records, and sometimes even the governments also, they are asking for providing multiple kind of informations through various portals. So which means information with regard to health or the individual's health or different parameters relating to the health are kept by various institutions, be it as the Institution of Medical Sciences, be it as the medical practitioners, or sometimes even the governments. So informations are maintained with regard to the individual's right, individual's health or medical status, and then sometimes the informations are desired either by the individual for these specific purposes, or in case sometimes if the individual has died, or some other person, if they are willing to have such kind of information, whether all such informations can be provided to those who are in need of such information, or those information can be denied. So which means, see, and sometimes it is also said that the individual's health status is the concern of that individual in his or her privacy. So there are privacy concerns also, that whether the individual has taken some kind of treatments, like Naomi Campbell's case was there in reference to disclosures of the information from the public figure, where it was claimed that there was a newspaper who published this information that this famous model, supermodel, was subject to some kind of drugs, and she was taking advices from some rehabilitation centers, and those informations were somehow acquired by the press and published such kind of informations, which the Naomi Campbell filed a suit that it's a breach of confidentiality, and such information which is in private domain, or which is the concern of the individuals with reference to its privacy, should not be disclosed. So which means, in case if these institutions, and these institutions also, sometimes the medical hospitals, the government hospitals or the private hospitals, they are in need to maintain the record in multiple ways for multiple purposes, because it's not only these claims, but in case of criminal litigation or civil litigations, the medical evidences are also required to be provided at appropriate jurisdiction if it is required or called by the criminal courts or the civil courts. So sometimes it becomes the obligation also. We have the provisions in the Indian evidences also. There are many procedural laws which create such kind of obligations that the information or record pertaining to health of the individuals are required to be maintained, which means right to health is ensured. There is a identified right to health in the Indian Constitution and in other legislation. And the constitutional courts have also established the right to privacy as an individual's right. And there are multiple kinds of obligations created by the regulatory bodies, by different legislations, that the records are required to be maintained for multiple purposes. Now, in these three dimensions, these whole discussions will take place. And I'll try to discuss something with regard to that, what kind of difficulties, what kind of obligations, and what kind of decisions are there, and how it is relating to right to information, and specifically how it is covered under exceptions and even in exceptions. So if you say that Section 8 is an exception to not providing the information on multiple grounds, even in such exceptions, there are exceptions by which it can be classified that even if it is required that medical information relating to any individual, if it is required to be provided, in what circumstances it can be considered an exception and can be denied, and in what exceptions of this exception for which the information is required to be provided. So if we say that the relationship between the patient and doctor is based on some fiduciary relationship, which is a kind of exception provided under Section 1E, that the information obtained and maintained by anyone who is in fiduciary relationship. Now, who are in the fiduciary relationship? The doctor and the patient is a fiduciary relationship, or the legal professional, advocate and the client. There are a fiduciary relationship. So, in case if certain information is provided on the basis of fiduciary relationship, up to what extent such information can be disclosed. So not only the medical practitioners, now this concept of fiduciary relationship is very wide. It can be interpreted in many ways. In some kinds, the government can also be established as a relationship of the individuals in fiduciary relationship. So for example, if the government scheme obtains any information about the medical status of individuals, and if they are keeping a record of it, it cannot be provided in certain grounds because that also shared under this relationship. Even the hospitals, sometimes they can also be said that they are a relationship. And if they are maintaining the record of any patients with regard to whatever treatment has been given, what kind of problems today, whether that problem can affect people at large. This is a very important aspect, that when the information or a disease of any individual may affect public at large, like these COVID pandemic situations we have seen, that we have a specific chapter in IPC, chapter, if I'm not wrong, chapter 14, which deals with public nuisance and various provisions in case. And there is a provision of this quarantine also, that in case where a person is suffering with any kind of communicable disease and advised to be there in a quarantine for a specific period. And if he breaches or violates all those terms and conditions established or levied by the local administration, then they will be subject to criminal liability, and for which even the imprisonment can be given to such persons. And we also have these Disaster Management Act, whereby the local administration has been given the power whereby they can deal with all such kind of things. So, which means in case of such situation, where the informations are kept by the local administration, that who are the people who are kept in quarantine or advised for a specific period of time, and such informations are required to be obtained. That nature of information is something different, because it is in larger interest, so that the people can take appropriate measures and avoid contacting all those persons if they are residing in their vicinity or nearby area, and they can keep themselves safe, and not only themselves safe, but the local community also. And in such scenario, maybe there may be an obligation that the information are required to be shared. But in case if the information is totally relating to one person who is individual, and his or her information, if it is kept, whether the other should be allowed to obtain such kind of information by applying under the Right to Information Act, and for that purpose, what purpose it serves in terms of providing the information, that should be the paramount concern, and this is what has always been the question of litigation and dispute of differences. That sometimes the PIO consider that this information is purely a private in nature, and this may comes under the domain of right to privacy and says that the information cannot be provided. And sometimes they say that no, the information is of such that in case if they will not provide, then it may cause larger, larger damage, or which is of concerns of public health. And then in case if the information would not be provided and if the precautions would not be taken care, then it may harm the society at large. And then the same kind of information can be provided. So there are certain parameters, certain approaches which has been evolved by the commissions, by the CIC, by the courts also, and whereby even in the exception which has been provided under Section 8 of the Act, some classification has been made that in certain cases the same kind of information has been provided considering the larger interest or the public interest, and in certain cases the information has been denied considering it is private or the right to privacy. So then, if we talk about that, what are the parameters? Like what kind of informations, or where are the obligations which has been created to create the information? Because if you are discussing the scope of Right to Information Act, then the basic purpose of Right to Information is to establish the concept of good governance. And the concept of good governance is one of the aspects is that the information must be very open. The whosoever is the institution of public domain, they should be very open and transparent. So transparency can be brought only in the way if the information are maintained and available in public domain. So first of all, you need to understand that there is a concept of public domain and private domain. So some kind of information which are available in public domain. So for example, if any data which has been collected by the government agency under any specific scheme, explaining that these informations are required to be provided on a specific portal in a specific format, that may be kind of public domain. But in case the information has been obtained by saying that these informations are not from the public disclosures, or obtained on some confidential sources, or under any specific agreement, then all such information would fairly be in the private domain. So sometimes even the obligations have been created by the government notification. Say for example, during this COVID pandemic, when we say it was not possible for the medical practitioners to examine the patients in physical mode, and many of the hospitals and doctors have advised and started giving their advice to the patients online through internet or through video calling or through various modes. Like we are in and we have realized in the last 2-3 years, majority of the activities, be it is academic, commercial, or any, have shifted from physical mode to online. So online treatment in terms of just through internet was also very feasible mode, so that the patient should not suffer. And at that point of time, how to create the record, how to maintain the record, how to maintain the information. The telemedicine practice guideline 2020 came into existence, which has provided a kind of guideline to medical practitioners, doctors, regarding the manner in which the patients can be advised treatment by the doctors over the internet through messaging, texting applications, audio calling service, video chat service, various applications such as emails and other forms of. So which means there are guidelines by which the purpose of issuing such guidelines is that even in such forms where the medical practitioners are treating their patients, there must be a kind of record be created and kept for all such purposes. Because even if a person is or a medical practitioner is advising a patient through internet, he cannot take this plea that he will not be held responsible for the kind of treatment which is given by him. So whatever advice is given by the medical practitioners, even on these online mods, their record is required to be kept. So that in case of need, the documents can be provided, the information can be shared if it is desired or if it is in public domain. So there are some kind of obligations either created by the government or otherwise. Similarly, the Indian Medical Council Professional Conduct, Etiquette and Ethics, Etiquettes and Ethics of Regulation 2002, that also creates so many obligations, whereby the obligations are multifold. Not only there is an obligation to create the document and to keep the record, because one of the purpose of Right to Information Act is to streamline the information or the documents to be created. Because we have seen the practice before 2005 that the officers or the office management was very poor in terms of documentation. Even the reputed institutions, they don't have proper documentations, and sometimes even either they do not have human resources or the trained human resources or that equipment. Now the government, in most of the government departments, you will find that they have digitalized it. Now the computer has become a very common norms to create the documents and to keep a record. So it's not only that all the time the record is required to be maintained in the physical form of the documents. It can be digitalized and be kept in a very small space. Be it is in one computer, the multiple kind of data can be stored. So such kind of practices were not there. Now the government, after enactment of Right to Information Act, one of the things which everybody realizes that the documentation and keeping the record has become more easier, or you can say that the government departments and the government employees have become more vigilant in terms of not only creating the document but keeping the record of the document, so that as and when it is required, it can be provided. So in that manner, where the Right to Information Act is considered to be one of the tools to establish this concept of good governance, has up to an extent achieved. So all these are all the tools to establish this concept of establishing the good governance or open governance, be it as the right to information, right to surveys, or these kind of legislations are always considered as a tool to establish this concept of good governance. And we have seen the changes after 2005, where the documentation and keeping the record in the government offices has streamlined. So though the medical council or the medical practitioners, they have different kind of legislations after independence, and they had multiple kind of obligations. One of the obligation under this medical council professional conduct, etiquette and ethics regulation 2002, they have this obligation to keep the record and keep the record up to the period of 3 years. And in case if it is required, then they need to provide it to various things. And not only provide it, they have to provide it under specific hours, like 72 hours. So they are under an obligation to keep the record of all their whatever medical treatment they have given, prescriptions, and everything. Further, there is an obligation to maintain secrecy. This is very important. That it's not only to maintain the record, but they have also there is a moral obligation on the medical practitioners and professionals that they have to maintain the secrecy regarding the patient's data, including details pertaining to personal and domestic life, which is entrusted to them. This is very important. So at one hand, they have to maintain the record for the purpose of medical legal cases, because say for example, in the postmortem report, in case of any death, where a criminal case is pending, anytime the court may ask for that report, which is required to be provided as per the law which is established. So, and for other purposes, they have to maintain the record so that they can keep a record for various purposes. And for that purpose, they need to maintain the secrecy also. So they have dual responsibility. One is to keep the record for medical legal cases. Another is to maintain the secrecy so that all such informations cannot be provided or kept it in the public domain if it is very private in nature. or personal in nature. So there are obligations created by this. There are recently this electronic health record standard 2016 AHR is also there, which is key guideline that applies to. They have created so when it comes to why I'm saying, because these days all the informations are kept in either through the internet mode or electronic mode. So there are standardization of ISO TS certificates for hospital management, for medical professions, and there are multiple kind of categories in which they have standardized that what kind of obligations or the visas which are required to be maintained by the hospitals, the individual medical professionals, paramedical forces, and for that there are multiple kind of ISO certifications. So that in case if, say for example, if the government agencies are collecting the medical information of the individuals, then there is a certification that they need to keep the record as per the standardization of that particular certificate. So hospital management and keeping the record is not only in a very casual manner, it is required to be maintained in a very standard manner for which the classification has been identified. And in case if there is a violation in terms of keeping such records, then the medical commission, and there are specific agencies. So that would be considered as a violation of the ethical code as well as the norms which have been prescribed by time and again by specific agencies and committees of these medical commission or the MCI in other cases. Then we also have the clinical establishments registration and regulation act of 2010, where there are these EHR rules are section 52. These rules have been created, and the clinical establishment central government regulations and rules of 2012 also there. These provisions provide that in relevant part that clinical establishments shall maintain or provide electronic medical record or electronic health record of every patient as may be determined and issued by the central government. So which means it creates a kind of obligations for medical practitioners as well as the medical hospitals and all the clinics to keep the record, which means they not only the Right to Information Act, but the regulatory bodies and the government are also creating a kind of obligations, not only to create the information and keep the record of information, but all such informations must be in a standard form or up to a specific standard. And this also ensures that how much privacy is required to be maintained with regard to all such data of the individuals relating or pertaining to the medical health. Then if we see these are some specific obligations. I'm just for an example I'm discussing it. There are many other legislation, there are many other obligations created by different agencies, and we have the constitutional parameters also under which we have many judicial interpretation where the information are required to be shared. So we know that in the constitutional perspective, this Mr. X versus Hospital Z is very common case, which up to an extent is a conflict or contradiction between privacy and information. So where the court has ruled out that the information contained in a public record cannot be protected under the right to privacy. So when we say that there is a contradiction between the right to information and maintaining the right to privacy, the courts have very clear categorically said in the same manner that in case if the individuals, any disease of the individual is going to affect people at large, be it as the spouse or larger members in the society, then such informations cannot be considered as a personal information. Where the larger interest is there, when the public interest is there, that information, even if it is relating to any individual's privacy, can be shared to protect the larger interest. So since public record could include, so in certain cases, say for example, the government hospitals, if anybody has, if the medical professional has examined of a government hospital, they keep the record of it. And they only what kind of prescription has been, what was the disease which the individual was suffered, how much he was, what was the period for which he was hospitalized. So all for such things there are medical record. And if the medical record is in public domain, So that becomes the part of public record. So in case if such information which is in public domain or becomes the part of public record, and if such information is going to affect the larger interest or the public health of the society, then such informations can be shared or with those who are going to be affected by such disease. Say, for example, I've given not only this example, but quarantine examples or the communicable diseases. If a person is suffering with COVID pandemic, there is no privacy because it is going to affect the larger community. So in that case, the government they themselves are informing that this person is suffering with a communicable disease, and people are advised to not come into contact with us. And if that individual person takes this plea, no, this is my right to privacy, breach of privacy, then in that condition, it will not serve. That argument cannot be considered as a tenable argument. And that was what the exact case in some other manner when the person was suffering with the HIV disease, and his spouse was informed that in the larger interest to save the life of the other person. And the court says that court has ruled that the information contained in a public record cannot be protected under the right to privacy. Since public record could include hospital record, prison record, and any other information collected by the state body, this ruling may have an effect of bypassing any authorization requirement of collecting patient data already contained in a public record. So that's why I'm saying there are classifications made in terms of that what kind of informations are possessed by the medical professionals or by the hospitals. Similarly, in this case, like Sharda versus Dharampal, the year 2003, the Supreme Court again decided where a husband filed for divorce on the basis that his wife was mentally ill. And in order to prove this fact, the wife was compelled to undergo a medical examination. Now, she claimed that being forced to do so without her consent would violate her personal liberty and privacy. And there the court said that sometimes it becomes very difficult to determine. In case if the mental status is required to be decided, then the person is required to take to the medical examination. And in that case, the privacy is not the absolute right. That's why we have said that there are cases in which it has already been established that right to privacy is a right, which is considered as a fundamental right, but that right is not the absolute right. And that is what the ground on which this right to information and right to health and right to privacy, you can say that it is on the basis of case-to-case basis or depending on the facts and circumstances of an individual case, it will be determined that whether this information can be considered as under the purview of right to privacy, whether right to health should be ensured, or the informations can be provided for a larger interest under the Right to Information Act. So that's why you can say there is no watertight compartment or a straitjacket formula by which the balance would be maintained in between the right to information, right to privacy, and right to health. But certainly, in case if there is any contradiction and conflict in terms of right to privacy and right to information, it will be decided on the basis of facts and circumstances prevailing in that individual case. And every individual case is different. And based on such scenario, taking a holistic or comprehensive approach, it will be determined that whether the information should be provided, be it even if it is falling in the category of right to privacy, or the information should be provided in the larger interest. So there are multiple other cases. Say for example, now I'm giving 3 examples. Like a psychiatric patient, that confidentiality to prevent him from committing suicide. So if a psychiatric patient who is willing to commit suicide, and there is a confidentiality between the patient and the doctor who is treating the psychiatrist. But if the psychiatric or the medical professional or the is not sharing that information, then how to save the life? So then in that condition, the medical professional has to discuss all those things with the family members or those who are relevant in the life of that psychiatric patient, so that the life can be saved. Later on, that person will not say that my privacy was breached. That information was shared to save the life of that person. So there may be one aspect. One aspect would be that breaching a patient's confidentiality to prevent him from transmitting a serious communicable disease to identify others, like the Mr. X Hospital Z, where the communicable disease was there. And if the information would not be shared, then in that condition, the larger interest would be affected. So this is again a different dimension, sharing the information, though the information are kept by the medical practitioners in the fiduciary relationship. And the third example would be reporting a patient as being unfit for particular work, like a pilot. If he is not having the uprighted vision, or is having a very weak vision, or like bus driver, government bus drivers. So if they are not fit to perform certain, because certain kind of jobs require some medical fitness of a level, and if a person is not of that level, it may cause the people at large at risk, or the life of the multiple kind of people at risk. So in all these scenarios, the nature of information is different. In one case, where it is purely a confidential, but it is required to share to save the life. Similarly, in second case, where the patient's confidential information is required to save the larger interest of the society. And in third case also, so there is an obligation that the informations are kept under a fiduciary relationship, but considering the larger interest, it is required that the information must be shared. So in case if a person who is, because that's why in government job, all those who are recruiters in any kind of job, now this practice is prevalent in private sector also, that they are immediately sent for medical examination so that the person can be considered the fit. So if in a case, if the transport department appoints the drivers for public buses, and that person is not having an appropriate vision, or his vision is weak, he would be medically unfit to perform that kind of job, because until that person is having a clear sight, he will not be able to drive and save the other people. He may definitely might make an accident if he is not having a proper sight for that. So in such cases, the information are required to be provided or to be shared. So and that's why there are multiple kind of stages for which the information, even if it is kept by the medical professionals or the institution in fiduciary relationship. Why I am repeating and again this fiduciary term? Because the specific provision of section 8(1)(e) is completely decided or dependent on this one term. What is exactly that term is? I'm just reading this exception, which is relevant for today's discussion, is that exemption from disclosure of information denied. It can be denied, notwithstanding anything contained in this act. There shall be no obligation to give any citizen. Now, section 8(1)(e). I'm not discussing the other part. There are other exceptions which are relevant, but this provision is relevant. 8(1)(e) in reference to the right to privacy and right to health. So all such kind of information are not required, that can be denied. Information available to the person in his fiduciary relationship, unless the competent authority is satisfied that the larger public interest warrants the disclosure of such information, the information can be denied. So that's why I am saying, though the section 8(1)(e) is an exception to not to provide the information, but even in this exception, there is an exception, that is the second part of the provision, which says that unless the competent authority is satisfied that the larger public interest warrants the disclosure of such information. So this clause of larger public interest, but there are cases where the commission or the commissions have classified not only the larger public interest, but even the individual's personal interest are also considered to create an exception within the exception of section 8(1)(e). Now, in what manner? So let me discuss some of the cases where there is a interpretation of such information. Now, what does it mean by fiduciary relation? That already I have discussed, that a person is considered to be in fiduciary relation, that the medical professional and the patient. Now, the person who occupied position of trust and relation to someone else, therefore, required him to act as an that is benefit within the scope of that relationship. A fiduciary relationship springs into existence where confidence is reposed by one in another, and that leads to a transaction in which there is a conflict of interest and duty in the person in whom such confidence is reposed. This is the very important aspect. because at times it is required to be determined this conflict of interest and duty. This is always there. So a person, say for example, if the medical practitioner is in a fiduciary relationship, you know. Now, if you consider this larger public interest concept, that person is in dilemma. So there is a conflict between the interest and duty. What is the interest? That is the larger public interest. And what is the duty? The duty is to maintain the confidentiality as per the code of ethics. So sometimes a medical professional is under a dilemma to face this conflict between the interest and the duty. The interest is the larger public interest, and the duty is to maintain the confidentiality. And then in that condition, that institution has to decide. There are many cases. So for example, these days there are many research centers or research centers to, say for example, DNA testing, where proliferation detection. There are some laboratories or where the individuals are referred not only by the practitioners, but sometimes even the judicial courts, they refer the individuals to have their examination in such kind of laboratories for have the medical examinations. So whether these laboratories or institutions are bound to share the information or they can keep it. See, one thing is very clear, that if the information is pertaining to the individual is having the right to have the information. So if any individual who is subject to any kind of medical examination from any institution, that is his right, that he can ask for the report. But whether that report can be obtained by some other person or third parties or some other institution, that is in question. So that is only through a competent authority. So for example, that report of the individual can be sought or asked by the judicial courts to determine or decide some case, because they are the authority. But say for example, if any person who is already, if the husband's report is there, whether the wife can obtain, be it as the separate entity or family members or next friend, their neighbors or any random individual, for that matter, it is required to be decided that what kind of information, what is the nature of information, and in what way the information has been obtained, or what kind of obligation is created. And in that respect, there is always a conflict between the interest and the duty. The interest is that whether the larger public interest is required to be saved, or they have to maintain the obligation created under the medical ethics, code of ethics. So duty versus interest is one of the criteria where the informations are required to be determined. There are cases like Rajesh Kumar Madhu versus Center of Fingerprinting and Diagnostics, Hyderabad. Now, in this case, he sought to know from the Center of Fingerprinting and Diagnostics, Hyderabad, for DNA fingerprinting and diagnostics, Hyderabad, the result of DNA test, if any, that had been done in respect of his 5 years old son, who was living in his wife's custody. So that information of his 5 years old son, who was in the custody of his wife, he sought an information which was denied. Now, CPIO denied this information. Then he went into appeal. The appellate authority held that the results of the test cannot be provided, as the tests were not conducted at the request of the appellant. So it was not on the request of the father. It was on the request of the mother. If the mother would have applied to sought such information, the information would have been provided. But the husband, maybe there may be some kind of litigation between, or some kind of other purposes for which information was sent. So the CPIO denied, the appellate authority also denied. They sought the reason that since the test was not applied by the father, it was applied by the mother, so the father would not be entitled for having such information. Then finally it has reached to the commission, and the commission held that the relationship between the doctor and patient, a lawyer and client, falls squarely within the definition of fiduciary relationship. In this case, even if section 8(1)(j), which is in other way it is relevant, is not applied, section 8(1)(e) will apply. That not only to confirm the legal proceedings, because in case if there is relating to some kind of proceeding which may affect otherwise, but in case if the information has been obtained or maintained under the fiduciary relationship, even in that category, if it is sought by someone else who is not otherwise concerned, the information can be denied. So under section 820, the disclosure of diagnostic information to a private system can only be supplied by the party concerned directly and not by the confident, not by any confidential example. In case if he has required that information, he can only approach to the wife to have the information, not from the center of fingerprinting and diagnosis technique under section 9. So they say that the information obtained and kept in the fiduciary relationship can be denied under section 818, even to the husband if in the personal relationship. Then another case of Dhananjay Tripathi versus Banaras Hindu University, where the applicant had applied for information relating to the treatment and subsequent death of a student in the university hospital, Banaras Hindu University Hospital, due to alleged negligence of the doctor attending him. So these are very common kind of allegations in many of the medical negligence cases, where the patients they say that there was negligence on the part of the hospital or on the part of the doctor, and sometimes the informations are desired by the family members or maybe for and sometimes the informations are also obtained by the insurance company to know exactly that what was the sorry to know that what exactly was the cause of death, accordingly to decide that whether at what amount is required to be reimbursed under the particular insurance cases. So there are multiple ways. Sometimes the informations are desired by the information by to determine the medical the claim of insurance. Sometimes the individuals, so that they can also file the complaints in the consumer courts, because the medical services, if it is on the basis of fees or the charges paid, then that also comes under the preview of consumer protection laws. And in case if there is any negligence on the part of medical practitioners or on the part of hospital, then under it comes under the deficiency in service of which is a common criteria, where the consumers can file case, or on behalf of the consumers or the deceased person, the family members can file for deficiency in service, even if it is on the part of the hospitals or the medical practitioners. So there are multiple reasons for seeking such kind of information. So in that case, also the appellant was, however, denied the information by PIU under 8.8 of RTI Act. The public authority said public authority must provide reasons for rejecting the particular application. So it's not that randomly you can reject. If any public authority or the information authority under the RTI Act, if they are denying the information, that is otherwise also a very basic or fundamental principle of natural justice, reasoned decision. So even in any person, if he is denying or deciding some applications, he has to cite the reasons. So in this case, the court said that, CIC said that there is no harm in denying the information if it is false in any category of exceptions prescribed under section 8, 1 in such clauses. But at least cite the reasons. If you are rejecting if you are rejecting the information or the application sought under Right to Information Act without citing the reasons, then the matter can again be forwarded to either provide the information or to cite the information or the reason that why the information cannot be provided, or what is the reason on which the information is denied. And accordingly, the company says that in case if there is no such reason specified, then the grounds of reject according to particular provisions. And then in case such, if the reasons are not cited, then that will attract the penalties under section 20 subclause 1 of the Right to Information Act. Then another case, this is a very interesting case of making the distinction that how the individual can also approach to have their information. This is a very, very, very important case. In this case, this lady was the officer of law, the research and analysis wing, which is in itself is a very influential institution when it comes to the national security. So she was subjected to, she filed the facts of the case that she filed many complaints against the senior officers, including the sexual harassment complaint. And all those complaints were investigated and she could not prove the case. And then the matter reached to the court. And the Delhi High Court advised that the lady be admitted to this institution of human behavior and allied sciences for examination, that whether she is suffering from any kind of, whether she is stable in terms of the mental status. So when the treatment was undergone and she went to an treatment, after that, since she was continuing with the litigation which she has filed against the seniors and the other members of her offices, she wanted the record that what was the finding of this institution regarding the mental status, to establish that she was not suffering any kind of mental ailment. And she asked her that what was the finding of this institution regarding her case during the stay, and which was denied that the information cannot be provided. And then she approached to the commission by approaching that she has the right to have her own information regarding what kind of treatment and the findings. And in case if the individuals were not been provided such kind of information, then it will be complete chaos. That if that kind of right be provided to such institution, then the hospitals may also at that point of say that whatever treatment they have given to the individual, they are not going to disclose it. And they will become absolutely out of any kind of responsibilities. So they say that at least the person who has undergone through any kind of treatment or any kind of advices by such institution during the course of stay, then at least that person should be informed that what kind of that person has the right to have such kind of information. And they say that while observing that the applicant was in need of the medical record to tell the world that she was not mentally sick but fit, and also for defending her case before the appropriate forum. And then the commission directed that a patient has a right to his her medical record, which is rooted under Article 19 and 21 of the Constitution, under the right to information. Because initially, before enactment of the Right to Information Act, under the right to information and right to privacy were decided by the courts under Article 19 only. Article 19(1) specifically to be under the speech and right under Article 19(1) of speech, and that is whatever the freedom has been ensured. So that is a very fundamental right of the individual patient, that to establish the fact that what kind of treatment she undergone be provided to us for many other reasons. Even if not this cause to prove something in the court of law, otherwise also this is the primary principle of the very basic right of the individual to know that what kind of treatment has been given to him or her. So the patient has a right to his or her medical record, which is rooted in Article 21 and 19 of the Constitution, and hospital authorities, whether public or private, have a duty to provide the same under Right to Information Act 2005, in Consumer Protection Act, Medical Council Act 1956, and called medical ethics. So there are many cases, even in case where you need to provide or prove that there was a medical negligence on the part of the hospital who has treated, you can ask for the information, because the individual has the right to seek the information, even under the Right to Information Act or otherwise as a fundamental right under Article 19 and 21. This is a very important decision. So you have seen that by this way, you can see that from this kind of discussion, it is very pertinent that there are multiple ways. There are situations in which there are conflicting areas where the information and right to information and right to privacy are required to be balanced. Number two, there are certain gray areas where the right to health, right to privacy, and right to information are sometimes conflicting. There are ways by which the disease has been imposed on medical professionals and the institutions of medical treatment, that they have to maintain the record. And there are situations in which sometimes it becomes the situation when there is a conflict between the interest, which is larger public interest, and the duty, which is the duty of the individual medical professionals under the code of ethics to maintain the secrecy or confidentiality under the fiduciary relationship. And therefore, at that point of time, it would be determined by the individual medical protection practitioners that whether they have to disclose the information for the larger public interest or to the interest of that individual to save the life, like I gave you the examples of three, where the dimensions of sharing the information and the purpose of sharing the information was different. So considering all that, that's why I said that when it comes to sharing the information of individual relating to the right to health or the medical record, if the informations are denied, number one, there must be a very clear reason which is required to be mentioned that why the information has been denied. Whether the information covers any criteria of section 8 on which it can be denied, and even in section 8(1)(e), the information can be denied, but in case if the appropriate authority considers it fit to be shared, then even on such cases where the informations are contained in fiduciary relationship, it can be provided. So like in case, if medical practitioners in any super specialty hospital is keeping a record of his patient or her patient, and he feels that he is not supposed to disclose it, but his hospital authority, if they have been approached to provide such information, and if they feel that in the larger interest it is required to be provided or the information is required to be shared, even as a point of exception under section 8, even in such condition, the information can be provided. And therefore, by considering all these dimensions, you can say that there is no fixed criteria in terms of medical legal information or the medical information kept by the hospitals, by the medical practitioners. It would be always decided on the facts and circumstances of each case. And there are some very basic principles which are very crystal clear that the person whose informations are sought, say for example, the patient, he himself is in need of any information from the hospital or medical practitioners, then this is his right. And in that case, the hospitals and medical practitioners have to provide the information for any purpose without and considering or going through that what purpose is, that information are required to be provided. That is the right, not only under the constitution, but even on the other legislation, be it as a right to information, be it as a right to, this is a Consumer Protection Act, or under the medical ethics, whatever the norms which have been created at national and international level, the information are required to be shared. So there are concerns, there are issues with reference to the privacy. Sometimes the privacy issues are required to be breached in the larger interest, but in that case, the decisions are required to be taken with proper cautions. It should not be a general norms. So privacy should always be considered as a priority. If I have to make a statement, I can make a statement that the privacy should always be given the priority, but it should not be generalized. So in case of any case where the information is sought, it should always be examined whether the information is falling in the domain of privacy, and if it is required to be provided in the larger interest, or if it is sought by the individual patient himself. Only these are the criteria on which the privacy should be breached. Otherwise, privacy should always be considered, even if the right to information provides that the informations are shared. Otherwise, the information must be shared, the documents must be kept, it must be preserved, and the appropriate record is required to be maintained. There are other ways also. There are other dimensions also. Like I have not gone on the electronic record of the individuals, specific to the individual's health. There is a different dimension because there are obligations, and those dimensions are different. So in that condition, the responsibilities of intermediaries can also, up to an extent, is required to be met. And in all, we have recently in 2021, the Ministry of Information Technology have come up with the recent guidelines under the Information Technology Act, where the duties and responsibilities of intermediaries in terms of electronic data can also be fixed. But that dimension I have kept it because then in that condition it would have led to some other dimensions. This is what I just wanted to share with my limited knowledge with reference to right to privacy, right to information and health. It's open to all. If you want to ask any question, you are free. Otherwise, I will wait. Thank you. Yes, please. Is there any question?
Yes, good afternoon, sir. If I may.
See, there are two ways to perceive this notion of question. If there is no question, is everything is clear to everybody, or there is nothing clear to anyone, and therefore everybody is confused.
So my question is that the provision of the acts are general and not specifically expressed for medical profession, and hence it is subject to the interpretation by legal authorities in case of contested interpretation or otherwise. For example, sir, as per my knowledge, in USA there is a separate chapter on confidentiality of medical information act. So my question is that as we know that the right to privacy embodies the right to be forgotten as well, can a patient make a request for their data to be deleted after they have been discharged or after the clinical trial has been concluded? Can they make such a request at all?
Otherwise, also see one of the site when it comes to the medical ethics of 2002 regulations, there is a time period prescribed up to what extent the medical professional or the institutions are required to keep the data, and they have considered it from different perspectives. Say, for example, for medical legal cases or all. So this says up to 3 years, the medical practitioners they have to keep the record, which means otherwise it can be interpreted that after 3 years it should fall in the domain of right to be forgotten. And similarly, see, in Western world, the GDPR is there. We have also in the line these data protection bill is pending. So sooner or later we will also solve. The only problem is sometimes it is very difficult to create the data or to maintain the data. So for example, in remote distant area where there is no sign of any medical facility, where the quacks are the quackery is prevalent and anybody is prescribing any kind of medicines and public are subject to such ill treatment. Forget about the maintaining the record of such kind of treatment. So in Western world or the US or UK or in some of the countries, the medical facilities are very, there is already there is a very different system. Just by call, somebody will come and pick you if you are sick, and they will insure every individual is insured with insurance companies and agencies. They have very proper mechanism in terms of health concerns. But that's why I started my discussion with this that the larger population of state or country sometimes become a main limitation in terms of ensuring multiple kind. So though the government is trying their level best, why the government has given recognition to all such assistant level medical practitioners so that they can increase the number of medical, at least they can count at the larger level, because if the government has signed or the WHO documents, we are under the compulsion to send every year our reports that what we have done in the health sector. So in terms of increasing the health facility, in terms of establishing super specialty hospitals, in terms of increasing the number of medical practitioners, we are bound to send the report. So the development would be judged on this criteria, whether we have increased this ratio of medical practitioners and patient availability, like 1 to 1 lakh or 90,000, or we have reduced it to 1 to 50,000. If we have reduced it by increasing the number of medical practitioners, which means we are going to a positive side whereby we are providing and improving facilities. Then the number of super specialty hospitals, number of primary health centers. So we have not achieved the level where we can ensure or we can say that we have ensured the right to health of every individual. We cannot even ensure that right to pure water to every individual. Forget about the, these are all the, that's why I said that the right to health is an inclusive right. So the manner of the time when we'll reach to such ideal situation, then only there is a possibility to have all this competition and combination. We have not reached to that level. We are moving, and that's why the government has started multiple kind of insurance facilities, ensuring that those who are in the below poverty line, at least these many different kind of policies they are offering, where free treatment up to 5 lakh rupees in case of such kind of diseases like cancer, for cancer patient, organ transplantation, kidney, heart, these kind of elements for this. So government is trying their level best to ensure that they are very serious towards maintaining and procuring the life of the individuals. At least they have started working in it. When they have started working in this area, maybe sooner or later we will achieve some kind. We are not saying that all the states are having in the same kind of infrastructure. There are some states, they have a very different kind of facilities in terms of medical practitioners, super specialty hospitals, and therefore some of these states, they are favorite destinations for medical tourism. So we need it. That's why the public sector, or it has not only the public sector, but the private sector is also open in terms of investment in the medical sector. So that is only the possible. We cannot totally rely on the government sources. That's why we have liberalized. The government has also liberalized the policies where the medical sector is encouraged. Not many kind of facilities have been provided, exemptions, subsidies have been provided. These all have, and they are also associating with the insurance sector also, that they are having this group insurance scheme in public sector and the government sector, so that just you need to only register for that scheme, and in case of any emergency you will be taken to the hospital and all the bills will be reimbursed by your parent employer of this. So the government is working, but the result will take time, and we will reach in comfortable situation only maybe sometimes. Be positive.
So I have another question. So in certain medical legal cases, when there is a conflict between two people, be it a civil case or a criminal trial, one of the parties may be eager to procure any sort of information about the other party with an intention of strengthening their own side and weakening the opponent side. Sir, in this spirit, I have heard of the term profession secrecy, which is also reflected in various provisions of the medical termination of pregnancy regulations, in which record having of keeping the record of a mother who has aborted a child has to be kept a secret. So, sir, what is your opinion on this entire situation?
So that's why I said that there are general norms and there are specific norms. The fiduciary relationship and confidentiality, to maintain a confidentiality not only for the medical practitioners but the institutions of medical profession, there is a paramount obligation on the individual as an institution to keep the secrecy and confidentiality. Let's be very clear, and that is specified in 2002 Code of Medical Ethics also. But at the same time, if the information, see, there are general and specific norms like Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act, where they have kept very specific measures. And for that, you need to not only consider the kind of provision, but the object also. That there is a very prevalent bad practice in the society, that they were identifying the fetus, and if they are female, they were aborting. So there is a very specific reasons for enactment, and therefore the provisions in terms of stringent punishment in such kind of act is are the measures which are I mean, to avoid or to encourage the restrictive practices. But that's why we say that it depends on what kind of the theory of punishment be adopted in which specific legislation. So maybe a reformative or completely restrictive. So in such cases where the medical professionals are indulged in such kind of practices of abortion, you cannot adopt a reformative practice in giving a second chance. You must be very strict in such sense. So the purpose, depending on the purpose of enactment of that act, the prescriptions have been prescribed. So in cases, that's why any information with regard to such enactment, that's why it says that no information pertaining to the abortion and everything is to be shared by. So it's an obligation in addition to this confidentiality and other norms which are already been prevalent in the different kind of obligation, be it as the code of ethics or in general terms. There are some additions. So depending on the purpose it is, so you cannot ask.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Any other question?
Sir, I wanted to ask one question. So, recently there has been a lot of controversy around the contact tracing apps like Arogya Setu, which continuously requires access to location history, Bluetooth, etc. Combined with the fact that these apps are running over government servers, which creates an apprehension among the people that a government can use these data as a tool to track and monitor them. So, I wanted to know what are your views on the same? Do these apps in any way breach the privacy of the individuals in the name of health purposes?
See, the cases which were with reference to all these breach of privacy cases, there are multiple kind of privacy breach cases filed in the different courts. One is with reference to the online social media privacy breach, right? After enactment of 2021 regulations, independently fixing the responsibility. Now, every social media sites are they are asking for a new contract or privacy agreement. See, there is a concept of due diligence in social media or for all these terms, which means the agencies which are acquiring such information, they need to create a kind of system where they should ensure that the information would not be breached or the privacy would not be breached or any violation of any law, be it as a cyber crime or any kind of IT violation or the provisions of IT Act will not take place. So the Facebook, they have set up their own Supreme Court of Facebook in terms of determining the due process or these due diligence clause, that what kind of norms are required to be fixed to ensure that they are making all efforts so that nobody should be provided the opportunities to use this portal to either breach the privacy or to offend someone or in any manner violate any IT law. That is one case. But at the same time, uh, by in due diligence, what these companies are doing, they are simply asking to enter into the agreement. So, say for example, if you surfing any site or social networking site, you are getting registered. Immediately, they will ask that to enter into a kind of agreement, which is providing multiple kind of terms and conditions, and majority of terms and conditions are and kind of obligations on the users that they will not indulge in this act, they will not indulge in this act, they will not indulge in that. So the concern is merely uh, allowing or asking the users or subscribers to enter into the agreement would serve this purpose of due diligence or something else is required. So, for example, on these online selling and purchase sites like OLX or Amazon, there are many products which are violating IPR, be it as the trademark or sometimes in the copyright issues there as well. So, is there a responsibility on the intermediary to check that whether this product is fit and not violating any IPR? They will not have that kind of resources. So they have created a kind of obligation that whosoever is providing any kind of goods for sale or purchase, they should ensure that they should not violate any kind of legislation. But this is not possible that we have a specific mechanism to restrict everything. Now again, we'll come to the breach. There are multiple kind of privacy breach cases which has been followed. It depends because government they don't have that much of resource to conduct all these kind of surveys or collection of. So they also rely on some kind of agencies. So say for example, X company is hired by the government to collect the information, or they have been given this contract to collect the information on these dimensions. If that information is breached by that company, then even the governments are filing cases. There are cases in which the data which has been collected by the government through these uh, independent agencies under any specific contract, they have breached this data, they have shared it. They have shared with the third parties, and then there was concern that this is breach of privacy, and the government is also coming up. And now they are also fixing some of the terms and condition in the government contract that in case if there is a breach of privacy or term and condition, then a heavy penalty will be imposed on that. So the government and the other institutions are taking care, but it's not until unless we have a mechanism. Say, for example, if there are some specific kind of programmings by which the use or if in case if your personal data is breached by individuals, you immediately be informed or you have some kind of resources which you immediately get the information. By that way, you will become to know. It's very rare. So when it comes to the technical process, we are still in the developing process. We are in a process to develop the data protection bill. We are still in a process to fix the responsibility of the intermediaries by due diligence, because up till now there are two principles on which this whole data protection is working in terms of the IT law. That is, one is the due diligence, another is the safe harbor. Safe harbor, where the government is providing a kind of shelter to all these IT firms or these intermediaries, where the government is saying that, okay, don't worry, we will relax some norms, we will not fix the criminal liability or other liabilities. And then you go ahead with that. So, the kind of 2021 regulations which has been recently implemented, many of these IT companies, they opposed it. Like in Pakistan, when they tried to impose in 2019 the same kind of regulations, all these social media companies said that no, we are not going to offer any kind of services, because they were not having any kind of business there. So then the state has immediately said that, okay, we are not creating such kind of obligation, you continue your providing your services. But in India now, we feel that we are up to an extent competent enough that we can spare these social media networking. We have our own resources, and therefore they are tightening it. And then they are saying that if you have the social media company, then you have to have an office here. You have to have some officers, some specific mechanism of scrutiny, so that there won't be any violation of breach of privacy or any norms. So we are in process, but we are not in a comfortable position where we can ensure each and every aspect of this. It will take time. Maybe after data protection bill or when it enacted, then we will have more. So the Supreme Courts are issuing directions for multiple kind of obligation. They are also creating that the state should ensure this. But unfortunately, the state is not that much resourceful in the present scenario. The government is working in that direction, but still it will take time to be in a comfortable situation to control and handle all such situations of the breach of privacy. Any other question?
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
I think Sir Kunal would like to. Yes, Kunal, go ahead.
So, with advancing technology in medical science such as DNA editing and Genome India project, we see that this sensitive area with regards to genes and other issues, it is becoming a gray area in both IPR privacy and right to information law. So, are the current laws like RTI Act and other laws sufficient enough to tackle this advancing area, or would we have a need to have a complete altered recourse in the legal arena for this?
See, in that regard, see, there are three ministries which are working very well: the information technology, the broadcasting, and the communication ministry, and one more ministry. They have constituted in last one decade, or for that reference, in this last 5 years, they have worked a lot in terms of constituting different specific committees. And the Information Technology Act is also under a scan where they are trying to review various provisions and trying to find out that what kind of provisions are required to be inserted. In absence of the recent amendments, because they are presuming in last 5 years, you can also search it. These ministries, you can visit the website of ministries also. You will find in last 2-3 years, multiple kind of guidelines and regulations have been incorporated. And recently is this intermediaries liability fixation under the IT regulation 2021. So these are all the efforts whereby we are tightening the loopholes so that the liabilities can be very specifically be determined. And we are moving in that positive direction. Most probably, we may expect that changes and amendments in the IT Act also, Information Technology Act recently, though we have time and again changes it. But considering all these aspects, now there are two ways. One way is to enact a specific legislations to consider all these aspects, and therefore much of the clarity would be there when the Data Protection Act would be there after maybe very recently or very soon. We will have that kind of enactment. Once that enactment would be there, then we'll say that what kind of changes are required to do, because for sure there will be changes in multiple kind of legislation, specifically in IT Act also after these data protection. So government at some point has to decide that whether we have to enact a specific legislations or we can modify the recent or existing legislations and modify and amend it so that we can make it workable and everything will go in hand in hand. And we can do. So there is a coordination which was lacking. That is very good thing that all these three ministries are working together and coming up with the collaborating. Otherwise, previously there was no coordination, and that's why one overlapping was also there. That the broadcasting ministry is informing something, then the IT ministry is informing something else, and that creates further litigations. So when they have started coming together and started in collaboration, working in all these ministries, we are seeing the results that frequently we are covering all these measures. So I think we can wait for up till this Data Protection Act, and then up to an extent the position will be set.
Sir, I had a question. So, sir, do Indian courts have undisputed authority and access to any patient's medical reports, or are there any limitations to it?
No, courts it depends on what kind of nature of that case is. Because even in exception, say for example, in section 81E, it says that if the higher authorities are satisfied, then the information can be shared. Similarly, there are provisions in specifically section 123 and 124 of the Evidence Act, where the courts can call the record of any nature if it is essentially required to decide that case. So, up to an extent, you can say that the courts have ultimate authority. There was another case which I could not discuss, where the information was sought with regard to there was some kind of treatment which was provided to the inmates of jail or the prisoners under trial made or the convicted, and their record was sought by someone, and on behalf of the committee of the parliament, and that information was denied. And later on, when they said that the government, when they are willing to decide a policy for a specific area, then they need the information, and at least you can provide the information to the policymakers. If the information would not be provided to them, then the information would not be available. So in that case, the commission decided that all the committees of the state legislature or the parliament, if they sought any information, if the information was required to be provided. So it depends on what kind of information and for what purposes. That matters a lot, because I have seen that whatever the judgments are, the purpose of seeking the information matters a lot. And on the basis of the intention of the information seeker, the information. That's why we have said that on the same ground, the information were denied. On the same ground, the information was provided in the similar kind of facts. And that's why I said that considering the facts and circumstances, it will be decided whether the information should be provided. Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you so much.
So with this, we would like to conclude this session. On behalf of Rajiv Gandhi National University of Law, I would like to thank Professor Dr. Anand Pawar, Professor of Law, RJNUL Punjab, for taking out time to interact with us on the nuances of privacy concerns with respect to right to health and information. Participants of this workshop have been greatly benefited from your thoughts and insights on the right to information and health. I would also like to thank our faculty coordinators, Dr. Gitika Walia ma'am and Ms. Sonika ma'am, for successfully organizing today's event. Lastly, I would like to thank all the attendees for making it a fruitful and interactive session. We look forward to
Sorry to cut you.
Thank you for inviting me, and I see there are many students of our own institution. So for your information, I'm in the campus only and as an employee of the archive. Otherwise, actually, if you are having any doubt, anytime you are welcome, we can discuss it. This kind of interactions are only there.
Thank you, sir. I would also like to thank Gitika ma'am, Shruti ma'am, and Sonika ma'am. Thank you for all the participants. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you all the participants. I request all the participants that they are kindly requested to fill the feedback form by tomorrow and submit the feedback form. Anybody who has not filled any of the feedback forms for any of the day would not be issued a certificate. It's a humble request from our side that you're kindly requested to fill the feedback form. And I, on behalf of RGNUL, Dr. Gitika, Dr. Shruti, and Dr. Sorika.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, ma'am, your voice is again.
I'm not audible?
Now you're audible, ma'am.
Just a minute. Now? Okay.
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So no, I was just saying that thank you so much, each and every participant, for sparing out your time. I know it has been a long week, but I, on behalf of RGNUL, on behalf of Dr. Shruti and Ms. Sonika, would like to thank each and every participant. And last but not the least, I would also like to thank all the student members, those who have been our constant support after all the dance and after all the jhadkas they have got from us. But thank you so much. I can see Tanisha, I can see Kunal, Neolika, Arya, Utkarsh, Snehal, Ankita, and all those bachas jinka main naam lena bhul gayi hu. Thank you so much everyone for joining. Hope to see you again soon in some other endeavor from the side of Casio. So thank you so much all the participants. Please kindly fill the feedback form. And yes, and thank you Jaswinder ma'am. And we could see you. Thank you so much for switching on your camera. And as far as the certificates are concerned, participants, we would be mailing you the certificates by next week. Till that time, we are going to cross-check the attendances and cross-check the feedback forms. So it's a humble request कि जिन जिन्होंने feedback forms नहीं भरे हैं, please, we're going to share it here as well, and that is there in the group as well. So please feedback form भर के आप लोग हमें कल तक send कर दीजिए. And yes, we can have a photograph. Who's going to take a photograph? All those whose cameras are on. कौन है ये?
Can we have a photograph, please? Can we click a snapshot, please?
Yes, ma'am, I'm clicking.
Yes. Please, all those who could switch on their cameras, so you can have snapshots of 2 or 3 pages, so that we can put it on our website. Yes, thank you. You can click the snapshots of 2 or 3 pages. Click a snapshot of 2 or 3 pages so that हम उसको website के ऊपर upload कर सकते हैं. Okay. No, that's okay. Kunal, can we have another snapshot, please? Can we have another snapshot?
Sure, ma'am.
Done? Thank you so much, all the participants. So see you again in some other endeavor, and kindly please fill the feedback form. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone. Kunal, you can end the